past Sunday against the Chargers, the Browns dropped 42 points on an elite defense without their two starting tackles in Jarvis Landry, and were very close to beating one of the best teams in the AFC, in spite of their defense not having their two starting corners, as well as Jadeveon Clowney, and terrible officiating calls on crucial plays. Baker Mayfield rebounded from a rough game in Minnesota, and after Arizona, the Browns have 5 straight very winnable games on their schedule. Yet, something still feels very off. OBJ has had less than ideal production, Baker isn't playing at the elite level he did last year, and Stefanski has made some truly mind-boggling play calls, and it just feels like there's a lot of meat left on the bone. Mayfield has always been of that gunslinger archetype. His ceiling was seen as limitless after his incredible rookie season in 2018, attempting and completing tight window Favre-esque throws. The potential and outlook for the Browns was incredibly bright, and the addition of a dynamic receiver like OBJ caused expectations for 2019 to get out of control. The thought was that Mayfield could further develop into a talent similar to Aaron Rodgers, who makes those aggressive tight window throws routinely, but weeds out some of those mistakes made as a result of those risky throws, getting the best of both worlds. In 2019, that didn't go to plan. Historically bad coaching and a clear disconnect with OBJ led to Mayfield's major statistical regression, and in typical Browns fashion, everything was blown up. The hope was that in 2020, Stefanski could sharpen Mayfield's decision-making and recapture the magic displayed as a rookie. And while Stefanski guided the Browns to an 11-5 record last year, this offense does not allow Mayfield to do what he does best, sling it. Stefanski comes from the Shanahan-Kubiak wide zone, West Coast scheme that emphasizes ball control through the run game. However, Stefanski is too rigid in his adaptation of this popular scheme nowadays. While you see other coaches like Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur from the Rams and the Packers that run this same scheme as Stefanski does, modernize their offense with 3 receiver sets and more shotgun passing plays to attack through the air, Stefanski's offense is predicated on running the ball out of heavy formations, and he's often way too predictable. In the last 3 weeks alone, the Browns have run the ball the 3rd most times on first down in the NFL, but defenses have shut them down as the Browns have only the 20th highest yards per attempt and the 9th highest percentage of carries where the runner is hit at the line of scrimmage on first down. Defenses have caught on to Stefanski's strong tendency to run the ball on first down, which keeps the Browns' offense behind the chains and limits Mayfield's impact. In fact, the Browns have faced the 3rd most 3rd and longs this year because Stefanski is too predictable on first down, which sets the offense back in longer yardage situations. Now that's an issue that Stefanski can easily fix, and in his press conference at the end of the Chargers game, it was clear that he knew he had to change his often predictable play calling. When Mayfield got rolling at the end of the last year, the Browns ran the ball the 14th most on first downs, which is right around the league average and a mark that I expect the Browns to be around moving forward. But the more concerning problem to me is the disconnect in the passing game with Mayfield and OBJ. Like I've said, Baker has a very aggressive play style which absolutely needed to be reined in after a disastrous 2019. But Stefanski and the Browns coaching staff have clearly coached Mayfield out of his play style that made him a star entering the league. Going back to early last year, you could see Mayfield hesitate to make those tight window aggressive throws that was his known signature play style. On this play against the Ravens in the season opener in 2020, the Browns are running a flood concept of off-of-play action on the weak side of the formation. The goal of a flood concept is to create 3 levels of outbreaking routes that floods the defensive coverage and puts them in a bind. Mayfield's first read on this play is the play side corner. If the corner stays in a shuffle technique and carries OBJ deep, he hits Njoku. If the corner opens his hips to the boundary and takes Njoku, then Mayfield rips it away from the high safety towards the sideline to OBJ. And if the corner plays deep and another defender carries Njoku's route, he's got Chubb in the flat for an easy completion and potential yak. When Mayfield hits the end of his dropback, the corner is nailing the crosser, and OBJ has leverage on the high safety for at least a 25-yard gain if Mayfield just pulls the trigger. but for some reason, Mayfield pulls the ball down, aimlessly moves in the pocket, and chucks it out of bounds. Later in the year, after OBJ got hurt, you finally saw Mayfield making those third-level reads on flood concepts. Against the Ravens in Week 14, the Browns are, again, running a flood concept off of play action. The read is the same play we just saw from Week 1. Mayfield needs to read the outside corner's leverage and throw to either DPJ or Njoku. Mayfield sees the corner slightly open his hips to Njoku, and so he throws it 40 yards down the field, with a defender right in his face on a rope to Peoples-Jones. Mayfield trusted himself a lot more in the year, and the thought was that he finally felt comfortable in this offense, so when OBJ came back next year, a much better receiver than any of the Browns receivers on the roster in terms of creating separation, it was going to be bombs away. But what makes this first situation so frustrating is that the exact same thing from 2020 is happening this year. Whenever OBJ is on the field, Baker continues to hesitate, he's skittish in the pocket, and doesn't make those wow throws that we've come accustomed to. In the Chargers game last week, the Browns are running their bread and butter three-man flood concept off of a hard play action fake with the same exact read as the last two clips we've gone over. This time, when Baker hits the top of his drop, the corner is flipping his hips towards DPJ, while OBJ is at the top of his route with the nearest defender facing the other way. If Mayfield makes the right decision on this play and throws it to OBJ, he's in the end zone or at minimum has a huge chunk of yards. Even though the play worked out in the end thanks to an incredibly accurate throw and as well as a great catch, it doesn't change the fact that Mayfield has seemed to revert to the hesitant quarterback that we saw early in 2020. It's very frustrating to watch the Browns' passing game with OBJ, since for whatever reason, Baker does not trust himself, doesn't trust OBJ, or Stefanski is in his ear about limiting aggressive throws downfield. Baker does not target Beckham nearly enough for the elite separator that Beckham is. It makes this so infuriating since Mayfield has no problem rocketing tight window incredible throws to Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and as well as Jarvis Landry, but he just does not attempt those same exact throws to a much better receiver in OBJ. It's mind-boggling. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon. Otherwise, the Browns will be forced to trade an elite receiver for 50 cents on the dollar. The yards that are left on the board because of this disconnect is really difficult to watch, because they are yards that this Browns offense is perfectly capable of gaining. It's almost less frustrating when you've got Nathan Peterman under center not making these plays, because you know he can't make them. But with Mayfield, you know he can make these plays, because you've seen him do it time and time again, yet he just isn't. On this play, the Browns are running a dagger concept from the trip side of the formation. The primary read on this play is OBJ running the dig route, which should be open as long as Higgins' seam route clears out the post safety, and Chubb's flat route causes the linebacker to flow away from OBJ and open up a narrow but still existent throwing window. As the play unfolds, Beckham's dig route is open if Mayfield can put it right on his chest so he's avoiding getting clobbered by the Mike linebacker. Mayfield loads up to throw, but he just doesn't pull the trigger, even though that's a throw he can and has made all the time in the past. Yes, there's a defender in his face, and yes, it's a difficult anticipatory throw, but again, Mayfield has made those throws in his sleep to other, worse receivers in much tighter windows. The disconnect is also slowing down Mayfield's progression and increasing Mayfield's sack rate, which is obviously not a good thing. Since 2020, without OBJ, Mayfield's sack rate has been 5.08%, which makes a huge jump to just under 7.5% when OBJ is on the field in the same time frame. Whenever Odell's route is an early progression on a given play, meaning his route is one of the first routes Baker looks at based on the concept the Browns are running, Mayfield, due to his hesitation to throw the ball to OBJ, holds the ball longer since oftentimes Baker should have thrown the ball by then. This might not be very clear in terms of explanation, but here's what I mean. On this play in the Vikings game a couple weeks ago, the Browns are running a fake orbit zone with a deep post by Peoples-Jones and a deep hitch route by OBJ. As soon as Mayfield takes the snap, His progressions dictate that his eyes should be on Beckham, and that's where he's supposed to go with the ball if he's open. DPJ's deep post is just really an alert read, meaning his route isn't part of the progression, since his job on the play is really just to occupy the deep safeties, but it is there in case he's wide open because of a blown coverage. If Odell isn't open, Baker's next option is to just check it down to Demetric Felton in the flat. As Mayfield gets to the top of his dropback, OBJ is absolutely open, even though Eric Kendricks is breaking on the route since he just has incredible route recognition. It's still a throw that Mayfield absolutely has to make, but he just doesn't do it. After it's too late to throw to Beckham, he gets skittish in the pocket, but luckily Felton is wide open, otherwise Mayfield would end up dancing around the pocket with no one to throw to, which would predictably end in a sack. Too many of these plays where OBJ is a primary read result in unnecessary sacks, since Mayfield just does not want to throw the ball to him when he's open. The Browns cannot afford to lose a dynamic piece like Odell Beckham if they want to be serious Super Bowl contenders. OBJ gets open on 72% of his routes of 5+ yards, tied with only Devontae Adams for the highest percentage all year. Yet Adams is averaging 116 yards a game, while OBJ is only averaging 41 yards. Mayfield is an excellent quarterback, despite how this video might have portrayed him, and this duo has the potential to be one of the league's best. To me, though, there needs to be a change. Stefanski has gotten way too conservative and ball control oriented, and Mayfield has obviously been coached out of his signature gunslinger mentality, which is affecting OBJ's production and impact. It's a complicated, frustrating dynamic, but it's one that the Browns will definitely need to figure out if they hope to play in Los Angeles in February.